you're dying to know, we try to get a little early, okay? And the other thing, get comfy. It pains me to see you craning your neck like that. Turn your chair. Get comfy, okay? If your chair is like your back's to me, just turn it so you can stay engaged. And if you're a little chilly in here, we shut the windows because it felt a little chilly. We are just doing that to keep you awake because I'm going to be so boring. I hope that's not the reason. And I kind of like to cruise in the group, so I'm going to be cruising around. And I really like interaction. So if you like something I'm saying, you can say, oh yeah, amen, sister, or something, all right? And if you're really curious and you just do not get what I'm talking about, shout out, say something to me, okay? Because the worst thing in the world would be that if you were just kind of like glazed over and didn't get something and don't ask. Because then you just wasted 3 hours of your lovely life. And I want you to walk away with something. I want you to be a little bit different after you walk away tonight. So, good? Are we clear? All right? Awesome. So, personal branding. It is really interesting and really innovative. It's come alive in the last few years, even more so, at least for my life. And it's really this concept of we all have a brand. We already have a brand. See, that's the thing. A lot of people get this confused, and a lot of people in, I would say, the older generations kind of get freaked out when we start talking about branding. They're like, well, I'm not going to come and give you a brand tonight. You already have one. Your friends know it. Yeah. They totally, like, they get you. Your brand is held in the hearts and the minds of other people. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is how do you understand that? How do you make sure that you're being intentional about it? And how do you make sure that it's compelling and relevant to the people that you want to get a job with, like the people that matter, your brand community. So we prepared a little workbook for you, and I will say this, there are some freshmen in the room, right? And juniors and seniors and sophomores, right? This is where you raise your hand if you're a freshman. Yeah. Let me see. Okay, and then let me see sophomores. I'm just curious. Okay, then juniors and seniors. Okay, cool. I'll just be honest here. I was 18 years old and I'm hearing about this, or 19 or 20. There might be parts of it that I would be kind of like, oh, really? You want me to think about that? I don't even know. Now that might be your standard answer. I'm not sure. But I'm here tonight to say, let's bust through that uncertainty and get clear. Because a strong brand is clear. And the other thing that I'm going to say is your brands today will probably look a little different next year. So don't worry if it's like, oh, I don't know what my brand should be. I don't know what job I want to have. Pick something that you're passionate about. We're going to get into that. So this is your workbook. I would encourage you to save this because there's great information in here that might be more meaningful to you as you get farther on down the road, closer to your job search. But tonight you can mark it up. We'll even get an electronic version to the Career Services office, so if you need another copy, you can do that, right? Okay. So, a personal brand, a strong personal brand helps you be someone that's sought after. Who doesn't want that, right? It also helps you, we're going to talk about building your network. And not necessarily just your social network, your professional network, your offline and online network. And you do this by branding yourself. So I have been trained by a company called Reach. And it's a personal branding company. I'm a certified brand strategist with them. And it's a wonderful process. I love the process. So I'm just going to talk to you about the system. And you've got a copy of this in your workbooks. It's simply 1, 2, 3, success. You get to success. There's 3 different phases. The first one is extract. The second one is express. And the third one is do. I know, it's 3 keywords. They're fun. But essentially, the result of extracting is coming up with a personal brand statement. It's a statement that says who you are, how you do it, and who you do it for. The second phase, express, is about really building your communications plan. What are you going to communicate and how are you going to communicate it? And the third phase really is helping you think about what is your brand environment that you want to impact with your brand. So we're going to work on a brand environment plan. So we're going to just jump into this extract phase. I'll be giving you guys a little bit of time here and there to write some things down, but don't panic if you feel like, I'm behind, I don't know what my goals are, and I want to get these written down. You might not have time to fully extraction. Yeah, A+. So I want you to be thinking about, what are your long-term goals? Like, where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years? And don't be afraid to put something down. And then what are your job search specific goals? So just take a second right now. The inside page of your workbook, I think it's like on the back of the first page. Just going to give you like 20 seconds here to write a few things down. I see a lot of little scratching of the heads and faces. Like, what are my goals? Okay, moving on. The other thing that I just have up here is VPs, and that's another part of that first extract phase, and that stands for vision, your purpose, your values, and your passions, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later. So this extract phase is really about unearthing, uncovering your unique promise of value. Unique promise of value is a word that is used even with like corporate brands. And to just think about, what is the promise of value that people are going to get when they experience you? They already have it, like it already happens. There's people that when you talk to them, there's just certain things that you kind of expect. That's their unique promise of value. But a lot of times we don't think about that. Then we fail to articulate it, and then we might make a bad first impression. You with me? Yeah. So this first phase, extract, it's the portion that a lot of people like to skip over. In fact, I talked to someone tonight, and I said we're going to be talking about some of these things and what you stand for, and she said, oh, I thought it was going to be more about like what you wear and like how you present yourself and how you communicate. It is about that. But the challenge is a lot of people don't think about, what do I stand for? What kind of an impression do I want to make when I go out there? And in order to think about how you present yourself and what you wear and how you communicate and how you hold yourself and and just what you're going to say on your Facebook posts and how you're going to communicate to the world, you've got to think about what you stand for and what message is it that you want them to hear. So we're going to work on that tonight. So you've got your a long-term goal and a job search goal, right? Everyone's got at least one? Awesome. So this is just a quick bonus tip. Have you guys heard of SMART goals? Everybody say, if you haven't heard of them, say no. Okay, so a lot of you haven't. Okay, this is great. This is like bonus icing on the cake tonight. A SMART goal is specific, so that's an acronym. It's measurable. Measurable means, and I love, one of my coaches once said to me, what's the evidence of your success? So that's a great way when you think, is this goal measurable? So I might have a client that comes to me and says, well, I want to be more organized. Okay, well, how are we going to measure that? What's the evidence going to be that you will be more organized once you're more organized? Or, I just had a guy that said, I want to get better at technology. Okay, what does that mean? Achievable. Is it achievable? Sometimes people bite off more than they can chew, and then they get discouraged and they say, goals. I don't want to make goals. I never reach the goals, so screw it. I'm not going to make goals. They've got to be achievable. Realistic or relevant. And another R is relevant. Here it goes. Relevant to you, to what you want to do, to where you're going. And give yourself a time frame. Too many times people don't have a timeline. I want to, lose 10 pounds by October 31st. That would be specific. I want to feel better and look good. That's really ambiguous. So it's really just about getting smart. Okay, so in your job search goals, I want you to drill down a little bit more. I want you to think about things like, what title is it that you want? And really by title, it's more about position and responsibilities. What is the name of that? What salary? What kind of salary are you looking for? What industries do you want to work in? What's the size of the company that you want to work at? What are the responsibilities you want to have? Where do you want to live? Do you want to stay up here in the nice cold frozen tundra of Duluth? And because if you love here, you gotta, if you live here, you gotta love it, right? You gotta have some smart little socks. And what perks do you want? One great mentor once told me, think about what's nice and necessary in your job. So that just helps you drill down and get more specific. Here's a great baseball player, Yogi Berra. Great quote, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. That's a good reason why those goals need to be smart. How are we doing so far? What questions do we have? Good. Okay, so the things about, so 3 R's of goals. Goals need to be looked at. A lot of people write their goals and then they put them away somewhere, and then a year later they're like, oh yeah, I have these goals. And so the 3 R's are read your goals. Who can guess the next R? What? Review. Good job. Exactly. Review them on a regular basis and revise. I think the revise is so important. Goals need a course correction sometimes. You might make a goal. Young John over here was interviewing me for the Times today, and he said, well, what did you go to college for, school for? And I said, fashion, merchandising, and management. And I think you were expecting me to say something else, right? You were like, wow, that's interesting. Didn't expect that. Like, you probably expected me to say, what did you expect? Marketing? Business? Yeah. I went to, Jen's College of Knowledge for business. I still have a business degree, but I just got it out on the streets, actually. But that's my formal schooling was for fashion, merchandising, and management. So I did not, in whatever year that was, think that I was going to be a coach. I had to revise my goals along my life. Although 4 years ago, actually 5 years ago, I said that I wanted to be a coach. And so here I am, coaching, but I'm also now a personal brand strategist, and I do other things. So you really need to revise those. Okay, we're going to move into the next piece of extract, and that is the VPs. Vision and purpose, and the values and passions. This is the gentleman that Dina mentioned earlier. His name is Tom Peters. Oh, look at that. I love that. I haven't gotten to use one with a laser before. So Tom Peters. Have you guys heard of Tom Peters? Okay, he's a famous author and kind of a thought leader. And he is the gentleman who in Fast Company magazine about 10 years ago, he said, people really need to think differently about how they go out and get jobs. Even if you're within a corporation, you need to brand yourself. And he said, in fact, it's the brand called you. People need to take note. So it has started a whole really movement of people really thinking about being more intentional about how they brand themselves. So he says here, I don't think there's anything worse than being ordinary. You're the storyteller of your own life, and you can create your legend or not. So your vision, here's what I want you to answer. What's one problem in the world you'd like to see solved? Now your vision is lofty. It's big. It's way bigger than you, okay? It's not something that you're going to change in your lifetime, even all on your own. Okay? One of my visions for the world was to see young professionals really clear and excited about what they want to do and courageous enough to do it, to take the risks, and to not be saying, I don't know what job I should go for. I'm just not sure what I should do. So now I'm not going to change that all by myself, but I'm going to make a dent in the world. So that's one of the things that I care about in the world. I also care about, I would hope that the success rate of entrepreneurs is better than 20% after I die. Because right now, 80% of all entrepreneurs fail in the first 5 years of business. I think that's sucky. And I want to see that differently. So I had to kind of think a little bit. So for me, one thing that helped me was, raise your hand if this is happening to you. Well, what if there's more than one problem in the world that I'd like to see solved? Like, there's a few things I'm passionate about, right? Write them down. We're just going to have you pick one because focus is important. So what's something you'd like to see solved? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're even going to go into, like one of my clients said, she's something about child abuse was her, like she wanted to see that, like the abuse of violence to children just stopped. But she's a journalist and she's a writer, And she said, but I don't think I'm going to go work at like a shelter or, necessarily have a job in that industry, and that's not the point. Somehow, someplace her brand is going to connect to that. And it was funny because right in that workshop a little bit later, there was some girl that stood up and said, look at what you just said. It connects right back to your vision for the world. So as we start to think about it, the connections start to spark. Everybody got an idea for a vision? Raise your hand if you've got a vision down. Something. Hi, let me see. Okay, cool. Okay, so now we're on to purpose. What's your role in making that vision a reality? What might your piece be? And just keep in mind that there's all kinds of roles. There's support roles in life. There's frontline leadership roles. There's like the worker bee man getting it done. There's volunteer roles. So there's all kinds of roles. Doesn't have to be super conventional, but what's your role? This is one of my favorite quotes by John Rockefeller. Singleness and purpose is one of the chief essentials in success in life, no matter what one's aim. One of my problems when I was growing up was people would say to me, so Jen, what do you want to do? And I had so many things I wanted to do, and I was not clear. So I'd list off the 10 things that I think that I wanted to do someday. And by the time I was done, their eyes were like spinning, and they would kind of, okay, and they'd walk away from the conversation. And I thought, wow, why don't they get my total excitement for all these things that I want to do? But you know what, I overwhelmed them, and they didn't, I gave them so much, I had so much going on, that my singleness of purpose was, I had a hard time at first kind of grabbing onto something because I was so all over the board. Now, if I would have had a mentor look at me and said, hey, pick one of those things to focus on, and you might learn something. And even if you do it for the next year or for the next 6 months. Okay, this slide I know is scary, and it has way more words on it than a presentation slide should ever have. But I want you guys just to peek at it for a minute because it is about values. And your values are those guiding principles in your life. And you know what? You only get to pick 5 off of this list, because here's the thing. There's all the words on this list, if you can see it. I know it's kind of hard to see. You can stand up and get closer if you want. Things like wisdom, wealth, financial gain, fast living, nature, order, patriotism, creativity. There's all kinds of words. You might even be able to come up with your own values. This list just gets people cooking. But if you think about what are the 5 values that are most important to you, because, I could probably pick 20 values on that list that I love, that I think are great things. Integrity, truthfulness, responsibility. Okay, good? Got some down? Passions. What would get you up on a Saturday morning at 6 a.m.? I know that's early for y'all. Chelsea's up here going, ah! But what is it? What is it that would keep you up late at night talking until the wee hours of the morning like that because you're so engaged in that conversation? What can you think of it? You gotta, no, keep your mind clean now. Is that what you're saying? Did I hear that? Okay. To go to a party? What kind of a party? See, now we're going to drill down a little bit. Is it?
I mean, like a social party with my friends.
So you're really social. You like people. Yeah, that's good. You know what? I was the same way. And I remember one time somebody said, you really have a gift of hospitality. And I'm thinking, hospitality? I'm just nice? Like, that's a gift? What's so special about that? Because I just thought everybody was that way. Because what we tend to do is we think everybody thinks the same way we do. But they don't. You're unique. And you've got to uncover and unearth your unique promise. What does the world get to see when they see you? Where are my early bird girls? You know who you are. Okay, raise your hand high. You know what? There was this little group of gals out here that were here like at 4:30, right? So raise your hand again. You know what? Their brand is on time. They're the on time. In fact, they're way early. That is, I bet you people in their life know that if they say they're going to be there at 5, they'll be there early, like 15 minutes. They're going to be way on time. That is a part of their brand. And I could totally see that. I'm like, there's the early birds. There they are. So I want you to write down 1 or 2, maybe 4 passions, things that energize you, things that you like to do. One of the things that I came up with when I did my personal branding work was, I love to organize. And I always thought that was kind of geeky, probably like a techie guy feels like, how excited they are to work on a computer. That's their passion. But I really love to organize. If I am with a girlfriend and we get to organize your closet and clean out your clothes, I am a happy camper. But you know what? I was like, embrace that, Jen. That's who you are. That's one thing you like to do. So how is that going to inform who I am and what I want to do? Well, I'm teaching classes about organization in my job right now. Interesting. See how that connects? But I kind of had to accept the fact that I'm a little bit of a geek and I like to help people organize. And there are usually a few people in the audience that are like, okay, can you come to my house? Help me organize? Okay, we good on passions? So let's talk about somebody who has passion. This is the CEO of Starbucks. He has perseverance and he had vision. This guy was hired by the original owners of Starbucks to be their director of operations, I believe, of retail operations. Now, Starbucks started out as coffee bean roasters. They were roasting fine coffee. Howard here had just gotten back from Italy, and he saw that they were selling coffee, fancy coffee in little shops all over Italy, and while they were roasting the beans right there. And he thought, you know what, guys? It was 2 dudes that started Starbucks. He said, we need to sell coffee out of here and serve it. And they said, no, that's not a good idea. So he quit, and he started a little coffee shop, some crazy coffee shop in Seattle. 2 years later, I believe it was like 2 years later, he bought Starbucks from those guys. And guess what he started doing? Serving coffee from the roasting place. And it started expanding stores like in 1987. Don't you think those boys would have listened to Mr. Vision here? Because he had a great idea, and he bought it from him, and he expanded it. So just an example of somebody that has vision and purpose, and he just stuck with it, singleness. Okay, so we're going to move on here to the next piece. So actually, let me say one thing about what we just did. So all those things that we just talked about, VPs, what do VPs stand for? Shout it out. You guys need the food, right? Like, give us food. Eat some Hershey's Kisses. That's what they're there for. Vision, purpose, values, and passions, and your goals. This is all internal stuff, okay? So this is where we start to stir the pot and get the internal perceptions, the internal things that are going on inside of you. So I'm going to talk to you about external perceptions. And I'm going to give you access to a tool tonight that will help you find out what your reputation is. What's your professional reputation? I know some of you are like, oh, I don't really want to find out what my reputation is. But you know what? Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. You got to figure it out. Because what if what people think of you isn't really how you want to be known? Then you're misaligned. How you want to be known isn't in line with what you really, how you're known isn't in line with what you really want to be known for. And you can't do anything about it unless if you find out. So I'm going to talk to you about a great tool. But let's just think about this. What is it that people think about you? Are you fun? Are you creative? Are you smart? There is really no truth. There is only perception. And that's why, and I would even say everybody has their own truth. That's another way that I would say that. Because even tonight, there's probably going to be 30 different interpretations of what happened tonight in this room. And it's all true for you because it's your perception. It's exactly what you experienced. So it's important to find out how you're perceived by others because that can inform you of what kind of message you're sharing. So let's think we're just going to talk for a little bit about strong brands because brands stand for something. They aren't wishy-washy. Like Starbucks is pretty clear about their brand, aren't they? They're pretty clear. Music, neighborhoods, fine coffee. I mean, good Lord, my grandma would roll over in her grave. We're paying $3 for a cup of coffee. And it's being sold like gangbusters. So strong brands are recognizable. I would even say this. Strong brands offend sometimes. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, okay? Do you guys know who that is? Yes, isn't he just cute and fun to look at? Ashton, we love to see your cute little smile, don't we? At least the girls do. Okay, so what would you get? How would you guys describe Ashton? What's his brand?
Funny, loud,
Yep.
obnoxious.
Yep. Obnoxious, right? Somebody might even say that. He's kind of the I don't really care what you think about me. Watch what I'm going to do now kind of brand. So he's got brand attributes. He's a strong brand. Everybody in this room knew who he was. Madonna. She's been around for a long time. Sold more records than any other female artist ever. She is the brand, and she just reinvents herself all the time. You saw all those images of her. She shocks people. She publishes a book, I think, was it called Sex, actually, the book, and then 2 years later she publishes a children's book. I mean, she's just all over the map, right? She really is. I mean, it's just, but that's her brand. She has branded herself that people just don't expect what she's going to do next. But she's extremely talented. She's the brand of change. I call her the brand of change because that's what we know about her. We just know she's going to change. Here's one other brand that might be recognizable. What's her name? Serena. We all know her name. See what I'm saying? Strong brands are recognizable. Serena. She's a fashionista. She's got her own clothing line. She's competitive, courageous. Might you guys use these words to describe her? And it's not like we personally know her, but she's got a brand. She stands for something, right? She's kind of that I will not stop until I get there. Now, as a side note, if we were going to be talking right now about what you should wear in an interview, Miss Serena, this would not be a good example of what you might want to wear in an interview, okay? All right, who's this? Let's make it more personal, okay? You guys know his name. Does anybody in this room not know his name? Okay, because you probably haven't had biology yet. Is that what he teaches? Anatomy, okay, look it, you all know him. He is so recognizable, and he's such a strong brand. The guy has a Facebook page with 1,000 fans on it. And there's people from Germany saying, you've changed my life. I listened to your lectures. I'm a med student in Germany, and they're just amazing. He's a strong brand. St. Scholastica's got something with Mr. Doc C here. Now, and this is the great thing that I want you to think about. I am not here to say, let's create a cool brand for you, Abigail. Let's just make it all cool and hot and make you so funky. That is not about branding. It's about being authentic. It's about being differentiated. And it's about being compelling. Doc C is those things. So I want to hear you guys shout out. What are some words that you would describe him with? Smart. Passionate. Thought-provoking. That was twice I heard that. What else? Logical. He describes himself as fair, enthusiastic, legendary. He didn't say legendary, to be fair. He would never say that. In fact, he was like, you're asking me how I would describe myself? That's kind of a weird question. And I was like, well, how do you think others would describe you? And he was like, okay, that's even weirder. More weird. But on the Facebook page, there were people that said, Doc C, you're a legend. Like, that was all over it. Legendary would be a brand attribute. So as he does things, I mean, you would want to say, like, you would want to recognize that legendary is a brand. In fact, look at this. Have y'all seen this? There's shirts that have been made for this guy because he's that strong of a brand. And he was like, you're using me as an example for a brand? Is that bad? I'm like, no, it's really good. He's approachable. That's the one thing that I put on there because I heard you guys, I mean, it sounds like people just love the guy. So thank you, Doc C, for letting us use you as an example. But I wanted to bring that a little bit closer to home so you could see how branding is around us. You all have a brand. I'm just here to help you articulate it so you can communicate it in a way that makes sense and is just differentiated and compelling. So this is a link that you guys have right in here, and it's something that's really wonderful. It's the leading brand assessment in the world. It's been taken by thousands of people. You can understand your current reputation after you do this. So I am going to go through the steps real briefly because we're not going to be doing it tonight, but I'm going to tell you how you can do it. And I'm going to offer a teleclass, so if anybody that is a little more serious and really wants to dig into this branding stuff, on the teleclass, we'll be talking about using this 360 reach tool, what you do with the results, and even maybe how you use your brand to wow an interviewer. So I'll get Dina the date of that, and that'll just be a free class that I'm going to do for you guys afterwards. So if you want to press into this a little bit more and see what is in store for you, you can. So have you all heard of 360 assessments? Do you understand what that means? Okay, so let's talk about that. What does it mean? What does it mean to do a 360?
Every day assessment?
Actually, no. What you want to get feedback from 360 degrees around you. So that's what 360 means. It means get feedback from colleagues, get feedback from your roommates, get feedback from maybe your parents, get feedback from your employer. If you did an internship, get feedback from them, get feedback from your professors. Here is the key. You want to get feedback from people that you would say know you well. Now, they don't need to know every detail about you. Some people get really persnickety about this. But just if you could say, yeah, they know me pretty well. They know me pretty well, so they could give me some feedback. So once you log on, I'm going to go through these very quickly. You're going to personalize your profile. You're going to do the self-assessment. Key, you must do the self-assessment first. Because you want to know, how do I view myself? And how does that compare to how other people view me? And if you wait for the results, you might be influenced and biased to say what you saw other people sharing about you, so you want to do it before. Then you're going to add what we call respondents to the profiler. Respondents are the people that you're going to get information from, okay? Give me some head nods if you're with me. Okay, I'm seeing some head nods. You can look at a sample of your profiler. Then you're going to send the profiler to the people, your respondents. And you want to probably send it, I would not send it to any less than 20 people. Because I believe you need 10 people, 10 or 12 Brand car. What brand of car would Brent be? What kind of car would you be, Brent? Would it be like maybe a Jeep? Okay. And how about you? What kind of brand of car would you be? A Lamborghini. You see? I didn't know. You see how that? But and like, what breed of dog would you be? What breed of dog would you be? A Shih Tzu, a little spunky over here. Okay, right? She's spunky. I've got a head nod. So, what's your brand? That's what this 360 piece is going to tell you. Now, everybody gets a little mixed feelings when they start to ask for this feedback, right? We all get a little negative feedback sometimes. I got some weird comments, and it's so funny. I was just obsessive about it. I was like, I've got to talk to my brand teacher. What does this mean? Somebody, thought that I was something about soggy cereal when we were talking about brand of cereal. It was so opposite from what everybody else said. But I was just so concerned about this one result. So that might happen. But what we're looking for are themes. And what you want to do with this is you want to look at what's positive, because they're also going to ask people about what are your best strengths. You want to accentuate the positive, and you want to diminish your weaknesses. Now, by diminish, I don't mean pretend that they don't exist. I mean use your strengths to mitigate your weaknesses. If you have trouble being on time, you don't need to lead the interview saying, "Hi, I'm late all the time. I'm sorry." That's not what we're talking about. But we're also not talking about being untrue, because branding is about being authentic. And it's about being comfortable with being authentic. Kind of like let your freak flag fly. We're all a little freaky inside, but we gotta let it out sometimes and be real, because that's more interesting, right? Okay. So the 1, 2, 3 process, there it is again. talked about part 1, and now we're going to jump into part 2. And how we doing? I'm just going to check the time here on Google. 6:04. We're really coming soon. Are you guys doing all right? Okay. So remember, we just finished the extract phase. We talked about things in the extract phase, and we're going to start talking about the express phase. But before we go on, I just want to see what questions or comments do we have about the extract phase. So let me hear a couple of comments. Okay, right over here in the straight green. Can you stand up, please?
Yeah, sure. What kind of time frame should that 360 be?
I believe that's the free version, and I believe you have 2 weeks to get it done. It's either 2 weeks or 30 days. You can upgrade it and get a premium version for a fee, and it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 to $50 to get the premium version. And the premium version actually gives you a really detailed report. It'll talk about your leadership competencies, and they'll even group it, like people get to select, how do I know this person? So you can see, am I known differently by my friends and family than I am by my colleagues? So the premium version is helpful if you want to invest in that. It's a fabulous investment. But that's what I would suggest. Good question. Mary, do you have a comment?
I was just going to say that prior to this, I did the 360.
Yeah.
So I did 20 people, and it's really valuable. It's very interesting. You know, a little harder to get some feedback. You know, oh yeah, who said that? Who said to me? But feedback's helpful.
Right, it works. We gotta get it.
Yeah, process is great. And the mix between Honda, Accord, and Subaru.
All right, you guys see that? Mary, Honda Accord, and Subaru. That, those projected exercises are so helpful because it helps people think out of the box, right? Because it's easy to say, well, he's a this and a that and this, but if they have to start thinking like that, it's so fascinating. And some people are like, she's a black Jaguar with a big leather interior, because they have places to write comments, and it's just interesting to see what people think of you. There's also a section on there that asks for weaknesses. So that's hard, like, oh, here's disorganized, or here's this way. And especially when you feel like you're projecting yourself differently. But really important to get an honest look, especially before you start your career manual, like your career journey of where you want to go, because you could be more intentional about how you want to show up. Let's hear one more comment before we move on about the extract phase. How are your wheels turning? Let's have a brave soul to comment. Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment about the reach assessment too. I didn't ask enough people to take it.
Okay.
So that's something I would, when you said 20, I maybe had 10.
Yeah, 20 minimum, I would say, because here's the deal. You'll probably have half the people. It's usually about 60% response rate. So do 20 and then you'll get 12. Do 50. That's even better, because then you'll see more consistent themes. Okay, one more comment from the student. A brave soul. What's going on in your mind? What are you thinking about this whole extract phase of things? What are you guys thinking over here at the table on the outskirts? I'm going to come check in with you guys. Caitlin, what do you think about this?
We actually had to do the 360 reach for class, and it was really interesting to see what you all got back. Because some of the results, like some of them matched. Like I could be like, oh yeah, I can see. I'm glad I'm showing that part. And then other times you're like, oh, like it just makes you think like, oh okay, like, makes you realize what you're doing.
Yeah, and how it's impacting. So she just said she took a 360 reach for a class, and it was really interesting because some of the results were really right on, and some of them weren't that like did what she thought they were going to be. Some are surprised. Okay. We talked about goals and vision, purpose, values, passions. Now we're going to talk about your brand attributes. And in part 3, we're going to talk about target audience, which are your peers, and how those work, and then your offerings, your strengths, and your personal brand statement. Those are all the different things we're going to cover. So let's jump into your target audience and key influencers, okay? Now this is the express phase. So it's interesting, a lot of times I will ask people, whether they're in business or even for personal branding, who is your target audience? What do you think Yeah, exactly, exactly. So we're concerned about the target. So the questions you should ask yourself, you've got them there, I believe, in your workbook. Who are the hiring managers that are going to be hiring your position that you want? Now, John asked me a great question today when we were talking about the Times article, and he said, what's your hope for people tonight? And my hope is this, that when somebody says to you, what kind of a job do you want? Like, what are you going for? That you don't say, I don't know, I'll take anything. As long as it has good benefits. Really, just anything. Because, you know what, if I'm the employer, I don't want to hire you. Because you're a commodity. Let's think about Starbucks, right, for a minute. They sell coffee beans. Coffee beans aren't that challenging to get. I mean, they're like all over. There's all kinds of coffee, right? What makes us pay $3 for a cup of Starbucks coffee? They're differentiated. And so don't be a commodity. Don't just be an obedient cog going to work at the first job I can get that has good benefits because, check, now I have a job. Now I can get on to the rest of my life and get married or whatever I'm going to do. And I talked to a friend yesterday, a client, and she said, I wish somebody would have talked to me about this stuff in college because I was so concerned about finding a boyfriend and a husband that I didn't really think about these things. And you know, that stuff comes later, those relationship things. But I would love to get more serious and clear about, who I was and what I wanted. And that's going to change in a year probably a little bit. So it's okay. But don't be afraid to claim it. Who influences those hiring managers? Who are their friends? What associations do they belong to? Who are the recruiters for your industry? There are so many resources for you guys to find these people now with LinkedIn and with Twitter. I mean, there's conversations going on Twitter about different jobs being opened up in different industries. But you've got to dig, you've got to do a little research, you've got to be intentional. Where do you find these people? There's associations. I think my niece went to college here for health information management, HIM, right? There's anybody here right now in that, right? There's an association for it, right? It's like the HEMA, thank you, Health Information Managers Association. So she went to some conferences of that group. What a brilliant thing to do. I have another friend, a little Polish gal that went here. She was like our little adopted niece. She also attended something, an association, and got herself a job at Microsoft, just because she attended a conference. Now, she also had a really strong brand, but her resume got posted within that conference, and they called her. But you have to start to network. You have to put yourself out there. Even when you're tired, even when you're like, oh, I'd just rather go to a party. You can still go to a party after you get your work done. No, you don't. You're a social guy. You're going to be a hospitality manager guru someday of something. Who else needs to know about you? Who needs to know about you? Okay, so those are just questions to ask yourself. Is this part gelling? Making sense? Kind of? What questions do you have about this part? Now's a great time to ask it. Yes?
I have a question. Okay, so I'm in nursing.
Yes.
So my focus, who's hiring? Healthcare workers and stuff.
Be more specific.
Okay, so
there's a million.
For a lineup.
There you go. Now that's specific. She wants to work for a lineup.
So how do I know what I'm doing?
Well, let's start out by finding who is the hiring manager at a lineup, or who's the team.
Yeah.
Let's go on LinkedIn and start to find that out. And you can start saying things like this when you're at networking events. Or maybe you can go to there's got to be some